Hello everyone, Grimm here. Thank you very much for making it to this video. I just have a quick announcement before we go any further. As you've probably noticed, I've had to reduce the amount of videos I release on this channel. This will not be permanent, it's just during the period in which we seem to be getting less views. There could be a couple of reasons for that, but I would like to believe it's just down to the time of year. Either way, I'll be focusing on trying to make these videos better, more entertaining for people, so please stay tuned and work with me while I try my best to keep you entertained. If you like today's video, please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help my channel out. And in the meantime, sit back and relax. I was going over to my mum's house for dinner one night because my parents are divorced. My sibling and I went to the house and saw our mum and her boyfriend sitting on the couch with a grey gift bag with a tear on the side of it in front of them on the coffee table. She asked me if I wanted these old dolls in the bag. My mum used to be a secretary at a school, and a woman came in with 3 dolls in a bag. The lady apparently said to my mum to give them to a family that will never play with the dolls and just use them for decoration. I said that I wanted the dolls because I thought they were pretty. The first doll wore an emerald green dress and a matching hat with a black feather. The other 2 I don't remember much about. All I know is that they had blonde hair and one of them had an umbrella. After that, we went with our mum and her boyfriend to a nearby pizza place. After we ordered, a small black feather fell into my empty plate. I quickly brushed it off my plate and looked up at the ceiling, but saw nothing that it could have come from. Later that night, I went back to my dad's house, and me and my sibling were playing with the dolls. I know the lady said not to play with the dolls, but me and my sibling were pretty young, and we really wanted to play with them. Around midnight, while I was sleeping, I got woken up by my bed shaking violently. The dolls were next to my bed in the grey bag that I got from my mum. I looked down into the bag at the dolls and they were all there. I brushed it off as nothing because I was tired and went back to sleep. The next day I went to school early in the morning because I went to the same school that my mum worked at, and we were some of the only people there because she had to open up the school. My mum had me drop off some papers to a classroom. When I got to the classroom that I needed to drop the papers at, the doorknob of the door that was across for the one I needed to go into started to shake. The doorknob was locked and it sounded like someone was trying to get into the hallway from the classroom. I quickly dropped off the papers and went back to the office where my mum was. I told her what happened, but she said it was probably nothing. The day after, early in the morning, I told my mum I didn't want the dolls anymore, so we took them to the school that morning and gave them away to a kid of someone that worked at the school. No other occurrences have happened since I gave the dolls away. I'm not sure that this is some weird hallucination that my child brain came up with or something more sinister. If anyone has an explanation that would help me understand what was happening or may have had similar experiences to me, please feel free to share them. I'll be happy to read them. This is something from my childhood that still remains a mystery to today, and still scares me a bit when I think about it. I'm really curious to see if there's anyone out there who knows more about this, because there's little to no information that I've been able to find online. When I was a kid, there were small knit dolls sold in many stores for cheap. After doing a bit of Googling, I've since discovered the brand name was Utera, and that they were most likely a rip-off of the more popular watch-over voodoo dolls, as they have the same style and concept. Basically, they were sold as a good luck charm. Each doll had its own name and power, with its design being themed around it. My mum brought 3 of them. One was Chipper, a cheerleader with the power to turn your frown upside down. The other ones were Ellie, a pink elephant that helps you remember what's most important, because elephants never forget, and Florence, a nurse who was meant to make you feel better when you're sick. I don't know if my mum genuinely believed that they had magic powers, but she is a sort of casually spiritual person who believes in ghosts and magic and the like. After we had bought them, I was feeling grumpy and my mum passed me Chipper and said maybe she would make me feel better. I sort of rolled my eyes and said yeah right, but when I looked down at the doll, I smiled. I didn't choose to smile either. It was like my muscles automatically moved on my own to make me smile when I looked at it. I remember this happening other times when I looked at it too, but that could have just been placebo. The first time, though, I swear on my life that I did not make the conscious decision to smile. I firmly believe that the doll somehow did it. And this isn't the weirdest part, though. When I got home, I looked on the back of the doll's tag. The warning reads, "Warning, this is not a toy, and due to extreme magical powers, it is not recommended for children under 13. Use only with adult supervision." It also mentions that there is a Yondera game online, so I asked my mum if I could visit the website and play it. My mum said no because she had bad feelings about it after reading the warning, and I never visited it. Unfortunately, the website is now defunct. In this period of my life, I was struggling with severe generalized anxiety disorder and OCD. Both were unmedicated, and I didn't even know that what I was struggling with was OCD until a couple years ago. I had this horrible fear of somehow being teleported to a place where nothing exists, just an infinite white void. I know this is silly, but I was a kid and my mental illness caused me to obsess over things that were terrifying to me, and I thought of a place where nothing exists. Honestly, it still scares me to today. There was a distinct moment one day where I looked at Ellie, the doll that was meant to make you remember what was most important, and I suddenly got an image in my mind. It was of the exact white void I always imagined in my fears, with the words, "God is always with you," sort of telepathically communicated to me. I want to stress that I was raised atheist and haven't attended a day of church in my life. I don't consider myself a Christian, and I didn't as a child either, which is why I find it exceptionally weird for me to have thought this. Despite the dolls clearly having good intentions, this terrified me as a child because I thought that they had to have read my mind to know about my fear. I know what intrusive thoughts are like, and that was not an intrusive thought. It wasn't my thought either. It definitely felt like a message that came from the doll. Maybe both of these experiences that I had with the dolls were just placebo. I know the mind can be a very strange thing. Even if this is the case, I'm still very curious to know what others think and if anyone else has experienced anything like this, even if it's with other dolls. Despite how popular these dolls were where I lived, there's close to nothing online about them, and I couldn't find a single other post of anyone sharing their experiences with them. I know it sounds silly, but even as an adult I generally believe that these dolls actually do contain magic, and I'm incredibly curious as to how. I plan on using the Wayback Machine sometime to see if I can look at what the website used to be like. As embarrassing as it is, though, I'm still a little scared to do so. My daughter has several porcelain dolls. When she was 9, she got a sudden interest in them. I had never brought them for her because they were often very delicate and I didn't want her to break them. I took her to the Goodwill and she begged me for one. I let her buy it since she takes good care of her things. Quickly, I noticed something was different in my house. I felt like I was being watched. Shortly after that, she asked for another doll at Goodwill. Over the years, she has collected 3. I noticed that she was very careful about which one she picked. She treats the dolls like gold and keeps them sitting up in the corner of her bed. She tells me the dolls like me since I'm so careful with them when I move them to make her bed. I see shadows around my house and hear soft voices. Nothing that makes me feel in danger, and I'm kind of getting used to it, but it's still just so freaky. Ever since I was a little girl, I believed in everything spiritual, ghosts, aliens, fairies, etc. My friend, let's call her Sarah, on the other hand, was convinced that all of this was just nonsense. One day we were out at our friend's place and we were there to spend the afternoon. At this point we must have been around 8 or 9 years old. I don't know if this is something a little girl normally does, but at this age we used to go to the toilet together so we could talk in the meantime. This particular afternoon I had to go to the bathroom and I asked Sarah to join me. When we entered, we realized that our friend had one of those life-size doll heads that you could use to practice doing makeup on and different hairstyles. I was sitting on the toilet and the doll head was straight in front of me, looking in my direction. My friend Sarah was standing on my side, also looking at the doll head. I told her that I was getting bad vibes from it and that I was feeling scared, but she dismissed me, saying I was just being dramatic. Suddenly, the doll just turned its head and looked in her direction, and we both started screaming simultaneously and ran out of the bathroom. I didn't even flush the toilet and only pulled my pants up halfway. Years later, we were talking about it, and Sarah was downplaying it by saying we probably just made up the story, but I vividly remember this until this day, and the fact that we both started screaming at the same time is proof enough for me that this really happened. I vividly remember when I was younger having a clown doll talk to me from a hatch in our ceiling. It would speak to me every night, and it was very nice. We often had conversations about my day, and he would listen to me vent about my frustrations. However, the rule was always the same. If I slept with my hands or feet outside of the blanket, it would come down and take them off me. This terrified me to this day. I have trouble sleeping with my limbs out of the blanket. Has anyone else had anything similar happen to them? Why was this so specific? I feel I should also mention that I moved around a lot at that age, and it only ever happened in one house that I lived in, so I don't believe it was a hallucination. On May 9th of this year, I went to a flea market to browse. I passed by a clear cabinet that held an assortment of old antique dolls, and I was particularly drawn by an old, cracked doll wearing a hat with feathers. As I examined her closer, I noticed that she had a cloth body, but her arms, head, and legs were made of some type of plastic or possibly porcelain. I felt very drawn to her, and was surprised by her price at only $35. She wasn't in very good condition, and is clearly rather old based on the cracks in her body and the way her face is painted on. I returned to the cashier with the doll, and immediately the workers, who had been deep in conversation, halted and fell quiet. They proceeded to tell me a little more about the doll who supposedly hexes anyone who inconveniences her. This only made me feel more inclined to purchase her, as someone who was very interested in the paranormal, and as it is part of my faith, Wicca, I ended up buying her. My younger sister, 11, wasn't very happy that I brought the doll, whose name was Madame Leonora. She felt very thrown off by the doll's presence and requested that the doll be placed in the trunk on the ride home. I didn't want to upset the doll in case I got hexed, but my parents insisted that I put the doll in the trunk, so I did. That same day, I almost went to the hospital after an accident in my home. Similar disturbing events happened around the home whenever someone insulted Madame or did something she didn't like. These events pose a possible trauma trigger for some people, so I won't be specifying what the said events are. Just know that they were serious and they were awful. I began giving Madame gifts and saying good morning and good night to her every day. The first day that I gave her a gift, a package I hadn't been expecting for another 2 weeks came in the mail. Every time I gave her a gift, she gives me good luck. Madame and I had formed a friendship, but towards late June I began having strange and very specific dreams. In these dreams, Madame would climb down off the shelf that she lives on and escort me outside. We'd light candles and perform a ritual, and then I'd bury Madame in a box with the gifts I'd given her over the months. As soon as the dream ends, I wake up. So, with the knowledge I have because of my Wiccan faith, I decided to hold a seance of sorts, in order to communicate with the spirit hosting my doll. I lit a candle and used the pendulum with a board to communicate. The candle flame responded to everything I said, and I've never seen such a clear response through my pendulum before. Based on what I got out of the session, Madame was able to tell me that she would like to be buried, but won't reveal to me why. I've never sensed any negative energy around Madame before, but with each passing day, the air in my room feels heavier, if that makes any sense. I'd like to fulfill her wish and bury her, because I think she may be a Victorian mourning doll, but the vendors who sold her have no information on her at all, only that she makes bad things happen. If she is indeed a Victorian mourning doll, it would make sense why she wants to be buried. The only problem is, she won't tell me why I have to bury her. If anyone can tell me if there's any dangers in burying her, if there's anything I should know about this, or what I can do to identify what time period she came from, I'd really appreciate the help. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this. Please help if you can. Update. I woke up this morning and was pleasantly surprised by the amount of attention my first post received. I'd like to thank everyone for the concern and the help, and I've decided to sit down and type this up because of the concerns I'm getting. I even got my laptop out to type this up. I'll be going through some information on my experiences with the paranormal, some events that have occurred while Madame was living in my home, and what I'll be doing with Madame based on research and the advice from members of my coven as well as trusted psychic mediums. To begin, I've been working with the paranormal for 10 years now, when my mother introduced me to it after she noticed my sensitivity to haunted places and objects. The first experience I ever had was very young in the first home that I ever lived in. It began when I started noticing shadowy figures around my home, and items would fall off shelves or get lost. My mother came home one night with her sister after a ghost hunt in an abandoned Buffalo jail, I believe. I didn't know where they'd been, only that I had noticed a shadow enter our home behind them. I explained what I had seen, and that's when my journey to Wicker began. Not long after this experience, my mother decided to take me on a ghost hunt in St. Augustine with her, to the famed haunted lighthouse. Throughout my journey through the lighthouse, I felt a tugging towards a specific window, and was later told that a woman was often seen in that specific window. I felt hands on my back and shoulders the entire time I was there, and my shoes kept coming untied. I was little then, so the first experience scared me for a long while, until I felt a pull towards a shop in Gettysburg while we were visiting on vacation. We brought some equipment to communicate with spirits near the Sachs covered bridge, and while I was there, 3 spirits came into contact with me: a Confederate soldier, a Union soldier, and a little girl who had died in the house on the property. Each one connected with me through my emotions, and they expressed to me the pain they had felt when they died. All of them did not want to pass on, either for fear of the afterlife or the unwillingness to let their past life go. I returned to Gettysburg 3 times, and each time the spirits would connect with me and talk with me about their lives. After my first experience in Gettysburg, I decided to speak with 2 psychics, and both told me they believed me and thought that I was an empath. I embraced this, and after some research, and ever since, spirits have been twice as drawn to me. They come to me with their problems, and I do my best to resolve them. I never wanted to conform to a specific faith because my many different beliefs about the afterlife, the paranormal, and anything spiritual, until I found Wicca. Most of what I believe aligns with the faith, so I began my practice with it and found that I love every part of it. The reason for my brief stories on my experience is to ease the mind of some people who believe me to be inexperienced. I do very much appreciate the concern. It's lovely to know people have my back and urge me to be careful, because I wholeheartedly agree that safety is 100% necessary when communicating with any spirits. To add on to that, I noticed many comments of people who were denouncing Madame, calling her a demon. I'd like to ease the minds of people who believe Madame to be a demon. Madame has never physically harmed anyone in this household. Let me explain jinxes and hexes and curses. A jinx is like a practical joke. It's really just a nuisance of a spell that's gone very quickly. They're practically a mosquito in your life. A hex is a mildly inconveniencing spell meant to dissuade the hex person from engaging in acts the spellcaster does not condone. In Madame's case, she only hexes people who disrespect her, and the hex is gone within a day. They take up a lot of her energy. Hexes are moderately complex, and I've never had any issues lifting them before. A curse is a harmful spell, meant to damage people it's directed at. Curses are difficult to lift and often cause physical harm to the persons they're directed at. So with that in mind, know that Madame has never done anything physically harmful, and I don't believe she ever will. Her hexes consist of mild loss of memory, misplaced important objects, emotional disturbances, items falling, dizziness, and irritation. Many of you were concerned about my younger sister. I'd like to let you all know that Madame has never harmed her in any way. Madame and my sister get along quite well, and my sister is no longer wary of her. My parents had hexes placed on them after they disrespected Madame, but after they apologized, the hexes were lifted. No one has been hexed in over a month now. Let me put this into perspective for you. You're a confused person who's just been brought into a new home with people who are continuously disrespecting you. You're angry, yes? No one enjoys being disrespected, so since this was Madame's situation, she lashed out and caused some disturbances to get our attention, and let us know that she does not want to be disrespected or ignored. Madame hadn't received much kindness until she came into my home, and after a couple of weeks she was very much at ease. She doesn't expect to be given gifts, but if she receives them, she reciprocates kindness in the form of good luck. So with that in mind, you can also make note that I don't believe Madame to be a demon. Demons often, but not always, please do your research on demonology, have malicious intent towards the residents of a home. Demons are also less likely to attach themselves to an object and would rather attach themselves to a person. There is a difference between a demon and an angry spirit. An angry spirit needs an issue to be resolved, while a demon preys on people simply for the reason of being negative to feed off the harm it causes. I've also received the comment that I don't need to know the reason Madame would like to be buried, and to an extent, I agree with this statement. Madame suffered a painful, tragic death at a young age, and because of this, her reasons for burial could be very personal. I'm glad she trusted me enough to come to me with her request in the first instance. I won't push her for a response on why she would like to be buried. I'd rather just follow through with the request. So with all this said, I am going to bury Madame. I will not be burying her at my home, so in the case something goes wrong with the burial, she doesn't attach herself to my home. Tonight is a full moon, so I will be working with Madame in my dreams tonight to find out if there's anywhere specific she would like to be buried. I'll be salting the ground where I bury her, and I'm going to make potions to seal off the area. I have enough flowers, herbs, and crystals for protection, along with some oils, incense, candles, and pentagrams. Please do not comment that pentagrams are demonic, because they are not. I'll be working with the sister witch during the burial as well as an extra safety measure. I cannot verbally express how happy I am that so many people were willing to help Madame, and believe me, she's even more pleased than I am. The whole house feels very light today, and the animals have been extremely happy. I am in awe of the kindness and concern we've received, and I'm so glad you all decided to help. Thank you so much for your efforts. Also, for the picture of Madame many of you requested, she was able to express to me that I can put a picture of her up. I ask everyone to be respectful and kind. Again, thank you so much. Hello everyone, Grimm here. Thank you very much for making it to the end of this video. If you liked it, please remember to like and subscribe. But as always, remember, be safe wherever you are. Have an amazing night or day, and I am Grimm, and I'm, well, signing off.